So I think we'll go ahead and get started here. So welcome, good morning. Thank you guys all so much for joining us for our first coffee hour program in our virtual art series. This series is produced by the Guild of Artists and Artisans. My name is Elizabeth. I am the gallery and program manager with the Guild. If you weren't on last time, thanks for joining us. We began our virtual art series last week with a happy hour with Stan and Renata. It was a lot of fun, and we're going to continue this programming throughout the month of May, maybe a little bit further than that, even if you guys enjoy it. So we are, with this virtual art series, we're offering artist programs twice a week with a Tuesday coffee hour at 10 a.m. And then we'll have a Thursday happy hour at 4 p.m. as well. Both programs running each week. These programs are an opportunity to meet artists, tour their studios, shop for artwork, watch an artist's demo, and more. So each one is going to be different from the rest. So we encourage you to follow along on our virtual art series Facebook event page. That's kind of our communication platform. We'll post all of the information there, all of the Zoom links and everything like that. So you can join live like you are right now, or you can always watch later on the Guild's YouTube channel. So today, Coffee Hour is going to be hosted by mixed media artist Tyler Voorhees. He's going to be doing a lot of really fun stuff later on today, but we're actually going to get started first with some instrumental music courtesy of Scott Kendall. Scott actually performed at the Royal Oak Market back in November, that art fair, so you might remember him there. So he's going to play a little bit for you guys to kind of kick off our show here today. So I'm going to go ahead and open up his video and unmute him real quick. And I'm also going to, in the comment section, right over to, it looks like some of you started using it already, but right over in the right side of your screen, there's a comment section. And I'm going to go ahead and post up his YouTube channel. So if you guys want to check out some of his music later, you can do so. And also, he will be accepting virtual tips today. So I'm going to hop on his PayPal and his Venmo as well. So let me go ahead and get him started here. Hi, Scott.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, to Elizabeth and the Guild for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you guys this morning. Make sure you stay tuned and check out Tyler Voorhees. He's awesome.
Awesome. Thanks. We'll let you take it over from here.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm going to play for you a song I wrote called Miles and Miles. you very much for having me.
Awesome, thanks. All right, so I went ahead and posted some virtual tip information and Scott's YouTube link as well. So that's all in the comments here. So thanks so much for joining us, Scott. Is there anything you want to share with anybody before we head over?
No, you pretty much covered it. I have a newish YouTube channel. It's called Scott Plays Bass. Feel free to go check it out, and you know, let me know in the comments if there's any kinds of things that you guys want to see in the future.
Awesome, cool.
And yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, have a great day. Thanks. All right. All right, so moving along here, diving back into our program. As I mentioned, today's coffee hour is hosted by mixed media artist Tyler Voorhees. This morning, Tyler is going to give you a tour of his studio, explain his series and his collage process, and he has a couple of other fun surprises up his sleeve as well. So as I mentioned before, we'd love for you guys to engage and be part of this program. So feel free to leave comments in the right side of your screen. And then there's also a question button down at the bottom. If you have any questions and want to make sure that they're seen, that's a really good way to do so. So feel free to utilize both of those tools. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Tyler up here.
Oop. Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for hosting our coffee hour today.
I drink coffee all day, so it's just kind of what I do already, and just nice to have a bunch of people joining me. And
awesome.
Yeah,
well,
it's like I kind of want to. Go ahead.
Oh, I think it's cutting out for a second. Sorry about that.
Anyway, yeah, I just really love starting the day with Scott's smooth bass tickling there. That was pretty awesome to see and listen to. So thank you to him. But I'm going to start brewing a cup of coffee. Start out. There we go. And I've got my favorite mug, which is from a local artist out of Kalamazoo, Grayling Ceramics. Such a cool little fish there. I've also got local beans, Uncommon Roasters out of Saugatuck. So while that is brewing, I just wanted to show you two of my favorite artists that live right around me. One is Jeff Blandford, who made this beautiful vase that we gave my wife for Mother's Day. And it's a horsehair vase, so it's made using horsehair, which is really cool. So Jeff Blandford is his name. And then this piece of art is by a local digital artist named John Lieben. And it's all digital. So he paints that digitally, which is really hard and really awesome. There's his last name, John Lieben, and he's out of Douglas, and just does this really imaginative work. But yeah, I'm over on the coast. I'm over by the shores of Lake Michigan and by Saugatuck and South Haven. So we go to the beach a lot and collect things, and it's one of the displays we have in our house. But yes, we also have two young children, which if you've met me at the festival, you've probably met my children as well, 3 and 7. So we are busy parents, but we live and die by the coffee, which is done brewing here. I'm gonna throw a little milk in. We'll get to the art. Ooh, she's nice. So my studio is in an outbuilding on our property. So this is my commute. Let me show you this view here. There's Ivan getting some morning gymnastics in. It's our yard. Oh yeah. Little field that is next to our property where I look at turkeys in the morning. And birds galore. But here is the studio. Nice little outbuilding we've got here. And this is where all the magic happens. Whoa. Let me get the door. So yeah, this is where I create. Actually built by the former owner, and she made birdhouses. So yeah, that's what it was built for. And her name was Carol, and she painted this like really light lemon color on the walls, which I still haven't changed, but it's Carol yellow, and it's nice, so I'll keep it for now. But yeah, my name's Tyler Voorhees. I live in Glen, Michigan, and I'm a mixed media artist, which means I use different materials, and mainly what I use are water-based materials, meaning like acrylic and water-based adhesives and watercolor paints, things like that. And my main series is called The Jobs of Yesteryear, and I'm going to show it to you in a second. It really stems from my love of history and my passion for storytelling, and in particular celebrating people and kind of everyday people, everyday heroes that just go to work and just take care of business and do their thing, and are often, just go unnoticed. And I want to celebrate those workers, especially of the past, and just honor the work that we do, because the work we do is really who we are. And so it's an important topic that we think about and then we celebrate. And I seek to do that with my paintings. So I'll show you a few, and then I'm going to show you how I make them. And then, we'll see what we have time for at the end. But first, I wanted to put on a little music, because I just like music. And I wish Scott could just like be here in my studio jamming on that bass. But instead, we're going to throw on a record, which I had picked out here. There we go. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. So I do listen to records on occasion in the studio. I listen to podcasts, books. It's an awesome job that I get to listen to music of my choosing while I work. Whoop. So here's one of my most well-known paintings. This is called The Lamplighter. And so, of course, if you haven't seen my work before, you'll notice, I love history, but I also love surrealism, and I love contemporary styling. So for my art, I like to stretch them out. I like to make them nice and tall, and there's just something about that style that I've always enjoyed. And so this is a lamplighter. Back in the day when we had gas lighting in our towns and cities, we would light the lamps every night and put them out in the morning, and the lamplighter's job was to do that. And so this celebrates his job. And I think it's such a cool image. Most lamplighters used they would use a ladder, they would use a pole, but then some of them would actually build these tall bikes and use those. So that's what I put my lamplighter on. And so this is a painting on wood. Like, this is the wood grain you see here. Okay, that's the wood grain, that kind of dark brown. And then I've got acrylic on top of that for the paint in the background. And then the figure, you can kind of see the texture. He's actually made out of paper. And so this collage technique, I used torn bits of paper to make him. And so that's what I'm going to be showing you today, how I do that and how I adhere him and just the whole process, because I really like that effect. Basically, I do it because each piece is about the worker, right? It's about their story. And so both the style of the figure as well as the collage technique makes the worker stand out from the rest, because it's really about them. And so it's this nice subtle way to just show you what's the most important part of it. I have a lot more examples of my work, but I want to get my painting started because I'm going to create a painting live with you guys. So let's see, we'll start. All right, there's my coffee. There's my wood panel. Turn that music down just a touch. So I mainly paint on birch or maple. So it's just a simple wood panel. I buy them online, or I have my brother make them, who just started a business making them. Shout out to Lucas, my brother. He has a company called Odd Job Panels, and he will make custom sizes for you, and he does an awesome job. And so I use a lot of his just because he makes really nice work and neat sizes for me. I stain it first, and then once the stain, I give it a day to dry, then I'll go over that stain with a polyacrylic, which is this. And so that seals in the stain and protects the paint on top of the painting from interacting with the stain. All right. So I'm just going to do a simple background. No job in particular that I'm thinking of here. Just like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to do a background, and then we'll go from there. So grab my brush. My brush drawers. We're going to grab a big fella here. Big fella and a little guy. All right, and so I love gradients, just blending things. So I'm going to start with this kind of lighter color. I've got a bunch of grays pre-mixed here. And so I'm going to start, just make a horizon line here, and I never paint while holding a camera, so this is going to be interesting. Just make some sort of suggestion of a horizon line. Doesn't have to be anything in particular, all the way across. Okay, lay it on thick. Again, holding a camera and painting is not something I normally do, but I also paint around the sides. I stain around the sides and I paint around the sides just to make it easier to display, and I just think it's a nice complete look if you don't want to frame it. All right, and then we're gonna add a little more of that. And then I'm gonna get a little bit of this gray and start to kind of blend down. So kind of lay that in there, pick up some more of this kind of in between. Wow, okay. Getting there. Remember, mind the sides. There we go. Okay, keep forgetting I'm holding a camera because I'm getting into the painting, and so then I'll probably can't see it as well. But that's looking pretty good. Just a real loose blend, not real smooth for this painting since we're just futzing around, kind of. Which is good. I think that paintings that are just fun is what get worth it. And so to loosen up, to stay loose in the studio, it's good to just make a fun painting every once in a while. Maybe you're giving it away, or you're just hanging it up in your studio, or maybe you just destroy it when you're done. Who knows? But anyway, that's kind of my mantra in the studio, is to try and just stay loose. And I'm on this quest to always loosen up and just, you know, stay loose in the studio. All right, finally, I'm going to add this darkest gray here. Just blend that with my brush on the palette. And can you all hear me all right? Just let me know if anybody can't, or if the music is distracting. I don't know how the audio is, but.
We can hear you. It was cutting out a little bit a minute ago, but.
Oh, okay.
Good now.
Also, my record is skipping. Hey, how about that? We're gonna coax that along a little bit. There we go. So that happens. If it keeps skipping, let me know. I can switch my Wi-Fi. I might do it, but. All right, we're almost done here with it. With this nice background. Just a simple gradient, nothing too fancy. Looks like Bruce has a question. What's Bruce's question, Elizabeth? Can you read that to me?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bruce wants to know, are your job series paintings related to particular people, or you just pick unique jobs?
Yeah, it's a great question. So usually I try to, usually it's just a general job. Usually it's like a general occupation that I'm honoring. I try not to be too specific because I want people to be kind of able to broadly relate to it. So, you know, if I paint a particular person, like let's say a famous, why is that not focusing? There we go. If I choose like a particular fireman from Chicago, let's say, then you know, only people that connect to Chicago firemen might be able to connect to it. If I choose just a general fireman, then, you know, the whole industry can really connect to it, and I can celebrate them that way. But sometimes I'll find a particular job or story or person that's specific, that's just too good to not include, and so then I'll paint that. But mostly I paint a general sense of an occupation. Okay, so thanks for your question, Bruce. All right, there's our painting. We're just gonna let that dry a little bit. See, we got that gradient going all the way around. Just this little suggestion of a landscape, just a background. I'll usually spend a little more time in the background, but for these purposes, we're just gonna be good with that. And so next, I'm gonna draw the character. And so I will use just a regular watercolor paper. Just the standard, nothing too thick watercolor paper that I draw the figure on. Before I get to that, of course, I want to research and kind of think about what my guy's going to look like. And so, guy or gal, I should say. So I was going to show you like kind of how I do that using this. All right. So, so a lot of what I do is I look online. You know, I do a lot of online research. It's a great wealth of old photographs, which is really what I use for the inspiration for the imagery of my work. And so I'll look through old photographs online, kind of gather some images, kind of breathe it in, as they say, and then the painting will start to form in my mind as I'm inspired by the imagery that I find. So I'm not going to show you me looking online because that's just not fun to watch, but I got this really great book from my uncle that is about Maine workers from Maine. It's called A Day's Work. And so this has some great examples of the photographs that I would be inspired by. I mean, yeah, just some beautiful old machinery that they're working with. Cutting logs, a lot of logging up there. Look at those. I just love old photographs like this. You know, kind of a bygone era. Just love the quality that they have. You know, shipbuilding. There's just a wealth of ideas in here. Working on the farm. There's a couple. There's one that I wanted in particular that caught my eye that I bookmarked here. A photo like that is just, oh, I just love photos like this. You know, the kind of humble pride that this worker's showing. Everyday man. So I love photos like this. So this is something that would really catch my eye, and I would maybe sketch that up just to use it for inspiration. And so with that in mind, I can show you a quick sketch. I sketch a ton. That's really where a lot of my practice is. While we travel, I try to sketch. All my paintings start out as sketches. And yeah, it's where I really formulate the idea and refine it. So I'll find a blank page. I see this guy. And so, you know, I elongate them, as you see with my paintings. And so I start to think about, you know, what this guy might look like all stretched out. And for some reason, I always start with the hat. I don't know, something about the old hats have always caught my eye. And I also love big mustaches, so I'll kind of put that in to anchor his face. You know, not worrying too much about detail. Again, just staying loose. Getting this general feel. Okay, that's what his arm would look like, maybe if it was all stretched out. Love that roll of the sleeve there. Was there another question, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I have a few.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first up, Vaughn wants to know, which job surprised you the most when you researched and painted it?
One of my favorites is called a knocker-upper, and which just has a funny name, so that catches your eye right away. But a knocker-upper is a person who woke people up for their jobs in the morning. She was it's kind of a human alarm clock. It was often elderly people or women who couldn't find jobs otherwise. They would go around and wake up people before their jobs in the factories. And so there was one knocker-upper named Mary Smith who used a pea shooter to wake people up. And so I did this painting of her shooting a pea out a window, little pea shooter, and I just loved the story of that. So that was one that I just did not expect. And but they all, you know, what's really surprised me is just how any job, any profession, be it modern or a thing of the past, there's just always a story to be told there. There's always something interesting to find. And so I've just been amazed at how fascinating the whole topic is, and just this great way to connect with people.
That's awesome. That's cool. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
So Renata also wants to know, do you have a price range on commissions, like 12 by 12?
Yeah, so my commissions start at, what is it? They start at, I've done some like a small, like 12 by 24 would be like $575. So that'd be like a smaller size commission. It always depends on my schedule, but they start at $575 for the smallest sizes and go up to, you know, very large paintings. But yeah, that's my price range. And my originals start at $450 for the smallest paintings that aren't commissioned. So that's my price range for the originals, but I'll give you some examples of those as I show you more of my work. All right, so yeah, there's a sketch I might make. See the difference there? You know, just I like to stretch it out, something about that. There's some things about this drawing that I would work out as I move to the main painting, but just shows you how that inspiration translates to the sketches that become the paintings. All right. What's another question?
Yeah, more. So what inspired you to have elongated figures in your work?
You know, there's just certain your eye. I think everyone can connect to that, especially because we're so visually, motivated for the most part. So I just noticed as I was starting to find my style in school and in college that gosh, like the surrealists and, Salvador Dali and Tim Burton and a lot of artists, Giacometti, the sculptor, I just love that elongated form. There's something about that just made me smile and just caught my eye and kept me looking. And I think a lot about like the why, because I'm an analytical person. And so I think, is it because, I don't wish I was tall, but I love climbing. Like I always climbed trees as a kid. And so I love being up high in that vantage point. So I wonder if the tall figures like get me excited because I imagine, what would it be like to have that vantage point all the time? And I think with this series, what it really does is that it making them larger than life and making them big, again, kind of goes back to showing how important they are in the piece, like showing their importance and their prestige and the honor that I want to give them. So it works twofold, but in the beginning, it was just a visual thing that I just loved that kind of set my work apart in a way.
Very cool, thanks. And then one more here from John. He's asking if you know the work of German photographer August Sander. He said he photographed tradesmen all over Germany in the 1920s and 30s. And if you don't know about him, he suggests you check him out. You'll love his images.
I'm going to write that down to check that out. Because, yeah, there are some artists and researchers and photographers that have researched that topic. And so I'm always on the hunt for more inspiration. There's just, there were some sculptors who they started making these sculptures of workers in like the style of Greek gods. And, it's sort of the same. What I want to do is like take this everyday theme, but bring it to this level of like, fine art and show how important that the work people do is. Okay. So once I finish the background, then I will lay a piece of watercolor paper on top of the painting and draw out that figure to fit exactly in the scene. And so I've actually already pre-done this step. I just made this kind of, I'll turn him over, I'll see what I made this tall fella, kind of a floppy hat and a big old Yosemite Sam mustache. And so I actually drew him 3 times. Did this yesterday, and then I cut him out. I used an X-Acto knife. One piece of advice if you want to do work like this is a sharp blade. Makes all the difference and gives you a nice clean edge. And I go through blades by the hundreds, so I recommend that. But so what I do is I will cut him out. You can see, and you could even just use this figure. I could just paint him and glue him to the panel, and I've done that before, and that's kind of a fun way to do it. But if you want to add even more texture, like I did in the lamplighter, what I've done is I use torn up pieces of craft paper, just that everyday packing material that you see. I just love the tone of it. It's this nice color. Whoops. And so what I do is I take pieces of it, torn up pieces of it, and I glue them on top of this shape. I just cover that completely. And if you're a collage artist, how important the adhesive you choose is. This is the best of the best, in my opinion. It's PVA. It's used for book binding and other paper projects. It's archival, which means it's acid free. It won't yellow over time and it won't degrade. And so it's really sticky stuff. So I like this. This is what I use. I use a ton of that. And so, yeah, I cover the entire shape with it, and then I'll flip it over. You can see that shape that's there, and that's where I'll trim it to keep my lines, keep my shape. And then I'm left with this. And so I've got this fella here. That shape is underneath there somewhere, and so now it's my job to paint it. And so I'm going to I'm gonna bring him over here to paint him just because it's hard to hold the camera and paint. So. All right, so got my guy and I've got my paints. I use a lot of grays and whites and creams, and I just like the tones they have, and they kind of keep that historic theme going. And I use primarily acrylics, and I don't use anything fancy. I just use the cheap Liquitex acrylics. But I'm gonna start. See if I can zoom in here a little bit so you can see that a little bit better. All right, so I'm gonna start laying in that mustache. Look at that beautiful Yosemite Sam. That's a little bit wild there compared to what I usually do, but still a lot of fun. Yeah, so I'll just start to bring him to life. Do under the hat there. Love the old hats that a lot of workers had. The hat tells a part of the story for sure. Throwing some shadows. Just quick. Any more questions while I'm painting here, Elizabeth?
Nothing yet, but I'll let you know if it pop up.
Okay. Yeah, so.
I do have a question. So is the best place if people are interested in learning more about your art or purchasing a piece would be your website, the shop page on your website?
Yes, yeah, that's where yep, that's exactly what the place to go. It's tylervoorheesart.com/shop. And yeah, that's where you'll find all my originals as well as prints that are available, and also has some links on the website of some of my other projects I've got going, some of my past work. A lot of things moving right now, so you'll see all that I'm doing. And then also there's a contact if you want to do a commission. There's a possibility to contact me, and I can give you the rundown about that process. Yeah, so that would be the best place.
Cool.
All right.
Link to that in the comments here.
So yeah, he's starting to shape up nicely here. Add some shadows. And what I like about this texture is it grabs the paint in these kind of random, surprising ways. And so that'll bring the texture out and just add this nice difference. It sets it apart from the background and it just like surprises you while you're working with it. So I really like that quality that it has. And it's kind of got this grit to it, as you see, this kind of like the torn edges gives it this gritty texture, which I think connects to, the workers and that theme. So there's my fella. Oh, can you see it? Not very well. Yeah, there he is. Some black, and maybe I'll throw in a little of this lighter gray on the shirt.
A couple more questions here for you too.
All right.
So let's see. First up, have you taken any current photos and applied your process? Maybe photos of like family or friends?
So I have always wanted to. I've always wanted to be a portrait artist, or I admire a lot of portrait artists, and so I've tried. I try to draw my kids, and they look like zombies, and I'm not skilled yet at drawing people's faces and likenesses, but I have taken people's profession of people I know and honored them with some art, small pieces or bigger pieces sometimes. And I try to stay away from trying to like do a portrait and more just represent their profession. And part of that is just me playing it safe because I'm not a portrait artist.
Well, awesome. All right, Bruce wants to know, do you have any more murals in the works?
Oh, Bruce, he's we're working on some. Nothing secured yet. We've got some other big projects we're working on, which if you check my social media stuff, we've kind of hinted at it. But I love doing the murals, and I've got some irons in the fire there, but nothing for sure. But I love working on that scale, so I'm excited to get back out on the big walls soon, hopefully.
Cool. And then another question here, can you tell us a little bit about your background, your art background, and what kind of inspired, you talked about this a little bit, but about the inspiration behind your work, but kind of where you came from and how you're here today.
Yeah, so I grew up in rural South Dakota, tiny little town. I split my time between this little farming town of 300 people. I graduated with a class of 9 in high school, so really small rural farming town. And then my dad lived out in the Black Hills of South Dakota, which was more like mining and ranching out there. And so I grew up in just very, rural settings. And I think that in a rural setting, especially, your identity is so much tied to like what you do for work. I think that's true most places, but especially in rural settings, I think that there's just a lot of pride in the work you do. And so I grew up surrounded by that. But yeah, with the rural setting, I also had 0 art classes until I got to college. So I was really self-taught, did a lot of drawing and just mimicking artists I saw. I remember starting to do like caricatures, like with the giant heads and the little bodies. And I'm doing that after seeing an artist do that at SeaWorld. And so I was copying that, and that got me thinking about playing with dimensions and proportions of figures. And so I can see kind of the thread of that leading to my current work. But then when I went to college, I did a couple of semesters up in Moorhead, Minnesota, and Fargo, North Dakota up there. And then the majority of my art education was at Black Hills State University in Spearfish, South Dakota, which a liberal arts college, not, huge art department, but a really, really intimate setting. I got to know the instructors really well. Dave Wilson was one of the biggest eye-openers for me. Just a couple of instructors that really had the time and the resources to spend with us individually and work on our own style and our own technique. So from there, oh gosh, 14 years ago. And kind of honing my craft to today.
Awesome, thanks.
Questions?
Yeah.
Now, so
it might just be my end, but it's cutting out on your video and your audio a little bit. I do have one other question though. What galleries carry your work?
I carry all my own work at the moment. So we just moved to Michigan a couple years ago, and don't have a gallery that I'm associated with at this moment. So, yep, just doing the online gallery. Let me. There we go. I switched my. Oh, there. Am I back?
Yep, you're back.
Yeah, I switched my router. That might be better.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I want to show you a piece I'm working on. Speaking of commissions, there's a fella out of Texas who he's in the oil and gas industry. And so early in the oil and gas industry, there was a group of people, guys who would just go out and search for oil, and they called them wildcatters. And so I'm doing a piece called The Wildcatters, and I want to show you kind of more of my detailed backgrounds. And so this is a piece I'm doing for him. And so it's kind of inside of an oil rig, and the workers will be kind of set. One will be here, and one will be on this side working this drill here, drilling for oil. And then in the background, I've got this oil rig kind of spewing out oil. Another one more dormant in the background. One thing I didn't mention about my work is that I also, I love to think about how these jobs have changed and why we don't have them around anymore. And so in every single piece, I should have mentioned this earlier, in every single painting, I always put a detail that tells you how that job has changed or why that job is no longer current, or, you know, just how it evolved. And so I'll show you with the lamplighter that we talked about earlier. So with this piece, you know, they were gas and oil. There we go. Gas lamps. And so once we switched to electricity, that is when this job became obsolete. And so in every single piece I do, I'll put a little detail like that just to get you thinking more about it, just to showing the evolution of that job instead of just showing how it was done. And so that's kind of a neat part of the story that I've found to include. Thank you, Stan. And so, yeah, with the Wildcatters piece, this little cord down here, this is an optic fiber cable with a seismic detector. And so they put this little spike in the ground and have all these spikes in the ground around these fields, and they will detect seismic activity that they can use to find the oil versus the old days when they just would kind of talk to people and use their best guess based on the land. Let me show you, take this off here, and I'll show you, you know, kind of where I'm at with this piece. So I've got, you know, I've done this collage process. This fellow is going to be pulling on this bar. And so part of the fun of this process is that it's really precise. You know, I'm going to have to cut a line through this to show him holding on to this bar. And so there's kind of this highly technical aspect of it. And then here is his buddy working on the oil rig with him. And so I will hope to finish these today as I get them painted up and then adhere them to the panel. And so, yeah, I think, you know, I was gonna finish this piece. I'm gonna talk to you about a few more of my pieces that are available and show you those. And then if we get a chance, I can glue this fellow I painted to the panel that I painted as well. So, what I have is I have a number of prints and originals available on my website, and I'm just going to show you some of the examples of those as I put them on the easel here. This is a nice small original I have. This is called the Elevator Operator. And so she's just got this nice kind of sassy look to her, but yeah, I try to paint women when I can. Their stories are harder to find, but again, she was made using that collage process, and so when you see her in person, you can see the dimension that she has, which you can't necessarily see as well on the photo. And can you guess what the technology that replaced elevator operators would be? Does anybody? Just want to give you a second to think about it. But early elevator operators, you know, they would work this crank, and they had to be there because the operator had to work the crank to go up or down and stop it on the floor. And then once yes, Stan got it. Once we developed the button system, that's when the operators started becoming obsolete. So the elevator operator, she's my only small original I have right now, and she's available for $450 on the website. And I have free shipping on anything over $150 right now, so that's neat. And let me just run through a few of the other pieces I have that you can purchase online. Was there a question?
Yeah, quick question for you. So do you use the collage technique with your large murals as well?
With the murals, I don't. I've been thinking about it, and I got to do some experimentation with that because, you could use like a wheat paste or something, with something that big. You could use an adhesive that would wear away over time. And so my idea is if I did the collage, I would use the paper and use wheat paste. But then as the weather kind of wore away that paper, I could maybe have the figure painted underneath so that it would still remain, or maybe a blank space, kind of like hinting about the worker, being gone. So those are a couple ideas that I'm working with, but I have not in my previous murals done that because I kind of wanted to find my footing with painting on that scale first and then start playing around with it. So, but good question. All right. Let me just show you a few more. So this is a print, and this is called The Brewer. And so with my prints, what I do, one option I offer is I call it a panel print. And so it's the same wood panels that I paint on, but I mount a print on the front of the wood panel. And so it is a paper print, giclée print, and I mount them on the front, and I do 33 as a limited edition of each painting. So I've got a brewer here standing with his mash paddle, his leg up on a barrel. And so this size I sell for $155. So it's a nice, nice price to get up on your wall if you aren't in the market for an original. I see another question popped up. What do you got there?
Yeah, okay. So Stan wants to know, how do you stay motivated to work in this current environment?
I'm always, I don't know, I haven't found it that hard to work or to find motivation personally. I'm always working from home, so working from home isn't, a big deal to adapt. I think Stan talked about that on last Thursday. There's a lot of uncertainty, sure, and I can't, a lot of the ways we sell art is through art festivals, and a lot of those have canceled this year. And so, yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty around that. And so if I do get stressed out, it's about trying to figure out how that's going to play out. But I just try to trust, in what's going to happen, and know that I will be taken care of. And so I just decide that I need to find, what do I need to do that day? How can I contribute to the world? How can I help other people that might be having a harder time? And just know that we'll all take care of each other, and we'll all get through this somehow. But yeah, it's been challenging in some days. Sure, we all have bad days, but for me, it's actually, we've been home more than we've ever been home. We're usually on the road going to shows and back and forth. And so it's actually been kind of nice to slow down a bit and spend time at home and in this beautiful part of Michigan that we live. And one more thing, since you brought it up, I did want to show you a small series I've been doing called Working Through the Pandemic. And what we've done is, with my theme of jobs and workers, a lot of people, tons of people, I read that unemployment is like 14%. And it's the highest since World War II. And it's just a lot of people, their jobs are being affected. And so as an artist, I have a chance to kind of react to that. And so I've created this series called Working Through the Pandemic, where people can write in, and there's a link on my website you can find, where people can write in their stories about their jobs and how they've been affected, and kind of tell me about it. And then I've started creating small pieces of work based on that. And I share their story on social media, and then I send the painting to them just as a thank you and an encouragement. I only have one that I haven't sent off, but I'll show it to you now. This is a realtor. So just small pieces of work on paper, no collage there, just gouache on paper. And this is a realtor. So this is a woman who wrote in
who talked about how there's just so much stress in her field already, but how it's just been heightened by the pandemic. And so she said it's a strange time for her. You know, some people don't want to sell their house, so they're camping on their houses, or some people need to sell them, and so they're struggling through trying to sell it during the pandemic. But I've just been amazed at the outpouring of people's stories. You know, this is a stack of stories that I printed off. These are all people that have submitted stories, and so it's been awesome and powerful to read their stories. My heart goes out to them because there are a lot of people in a bad spot right now, and I just pray for them and do what I can to share what I can with them. So yeah, it's a long answer to your short question, but that's what I've been up to. All right, I want to share
how you're documenting their stories that way. That's really awesome. And you have a couple of notes here about how awesome that is. So you'll have to read through the comments later. I do have 2 more questions that popped up as well. Earlier, you had mentioned that for your limited edition Giclées, you'll do 33. Why 33?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I just pay attention to what numbers I like. You know, as an artist, you just get to choose this edition. And I like the number 33. I don't know. When I turned 33, I thought it was just a great year. That was a few years back, and people call it their Jesus year because that's how old Jesus was when he died. So that I like that connection too. But in the beginning, I just chose it because I thought it was a nice number, and it's a good, like, not too big, not too small. I didn't put too much thought into it, but yeah, that's why it's more interesting than 50.
Cool. That's awesome. So one more question here. How did you end up in Michigan?
I'll try not to make it too long of a story. After graduating college, chased my girlfriend then to Germany. She was from South Dakota, moved to Germany to chase her, caught her. We moved back after a couple of years and moved to Colorado, got married. And then we were in Colorado for 8 years and eventually just got priced out of Colorado and started looking around at different places that we enjoy visiting. We had discovered Michigan by doing the art festivals, and especially this kind of west side of Michigan along the shores of Lake Michigan, and just how awesome it is, but also how affordable it is, especially compared to Colorado. And just, felt pulled and called this area. And so we just started looking at properties and found this awesome little 2-acre house a mile from the beach, and just love it here and love the people. It's an awesome blend of rural life and just good natured, kind of salt of the earth people, but also there's a vibrant art scene here. You know, those 2 artists I showed you, their studios are within 10 miles of me, and there's just hundreds of artists throughout the state, but especially on this side of the state. And then you get over to Detroit and Ann Arbor, and there's just a lot of art happening here. So it's a good fit for us for that reason too. All right, I'm going to show you a few more pieces of work, kind of speed zone here. Running out of time, but I've got a milkman. I've got a soda jerk. Milkman, soda jerk. I see Stan found the bottle on the brewer. That is the update on that. With the milkman, it's a little harder to find, but milkmen stopped delivering milk because we got refrigerators. And so General Electric made the first refrigerator, the first electric one. So there's the milkman, and then we got a soda jerk. Soda fountains kind of fell out of fashion once we got the hamburger stands that popped up and took their place. So again, these 3 are panel prints, as I call them, you know, Giclée prints mounted to wood panels, and those are available for $155. Free shipping. All right, I had a couple bigger sizes here. It's getting a little bigger. These are 12 by 24. This is a gas jockey. pumping some gas into an old Buick. And then I've got an elevator operator, the male version, I suppose. And so, yeah, you can see like in this original painting, I used graphite, and I drew these characters in with graphite with just pencil. And so that's another material I will use in my painting, just to mix it up a little bit, since I can do that. And then I've got this is one of my favorite images, kind of connects to this area. It's a lighthouse keeper. And so again, this is a panel print. It's a print mounted to a wood panel. And this size I sell for $275. So a nice bigger size that you can get that won't break the bank. But yeah, the lighthouse keepers, waiting for Stan's comment to pop up, became less needed once we switched to electricity. Yeah, so, you know, each piece has its own story to tell. I love storytelling, so that's really my passion, and each one has one to behold. This one's called...
We're getting short on time here, so if you want to maybe show one or two more, and then or any last minute things you want to share, and we'll kind of get wrapping up here.
Sure. Yep. So yeah, this one will be the last one I share. It's called The Brewers. And yeah, just a more colorful scene showing this group of brewers brewing the beer, and just all the different ways that you can combine paper and paint to make figures. You see a lot of different collaging techniques there you can really play with. So yeah, that painting that I started, I'm just gonna glue that guy on there, and I'll probably do like a little giveaway on social media with it. So if you want to join me on social media or check me out on Instagram or Facebook, you can see that finished painting and perhaps let me send it to you. But thanks for listening, and thanks for your interest in my art.
Well, thanks. This was so interesting to hear about your process and all of the history and like little details behind your work. And you have a lot of really great comments, so I hope you have a chance to read those later. And if anyone wants to follow Tyler on social media, if you go to our virtual art series Facebook event page, which I'll link to in the comments here real quick, we tagged him in a bunch of stuff this week, so you can find him really easily that way. So I'll go ahead and link to that. In the comments, you also have links to Tyler's website, so check that out. And then just kind of lastly, wrapping up here, a big thanks to Tyler. That was awesome. And a thanks to Scott Kendall for the music earlier today. That was really great. We hope you guys join us for some of our upcoming stuff. We have a happy hour on Thursday at 4 with Kim Arden. And we will share the Zoom link in our Facebook event page in a little while today as well. So thank you guys so much. And thanks again, Tyler.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day, everybody.
Cool. Thank you.